Hi, it's Whitney Wiley, and thank you for joining me for Love Your Work, where we get to talk with guests who not only love the work that they do, but they come to share their stories with you and talk about the lessons that they've learned along the way. And today I have with me America's Supermom, Lachelle Atkins. How are you, Lachelle?
I am well. So glad to be here today. I just have had such a great time meeting you and all of our conversations. So I'm excited for what we create today.
Oh, thank you. I am honored and blessed that you are here. I thank you for coming. And I remember the first conversation we had, and you were sharing with me that you have 15 kids. I was like, I only had one, right? And it was a struggle. And you were smiling. You were smiling then, you're
hmm
smiling now. Every time I see you, you're smiling. And so, I want to start there before we get into the work stuff. How
hmm
is it that you can have a house full of people, 15 kids, a husband? You guys have dogs, cats?
Yeah,
I
we have a
understand you
dog.
have a pet scorpion.
Yes. Who's no longer with us. Rest in
Oh,
peace. Okay. But yeah, we have three cats. Yeah, three
I
cats.
can't even. I just,
Yeah. hmm
kudos, hats off. I can't. I can't.
hmm
So
it's
how are you
it's
still
all a work of
smiling?
prayer.
Okay.
Well, it's prayer, okay? Staying on my knees. That's one thing. And really just being happy with who I am. There
Mm,
was a period where, I wouldn't say that I just wasn't happy. I could still smile, but there was just that element of not being fulfilled.
yeah. Yeah.
Now that I have found, my true self, I guess, and being able to express that, I just feel like, hey, I choose to be happy and, life is going to happen. So why not enjoy it in the process? That's
And
just kind of how I look at it.
you're absolutely right. Happiness is a choice, and we can
Mm-hmm.
choose to be happy in whatever their circumstance. 15 kids, one kid, three cats, one dog, partridge in a pear tree, whatever. We can choose to be happy. And the same thing goes with our work, right? So,
So true.
right now, you are coaching women and leading a movement that is about
Mm-hmm.
helping women feel empowered, be empowered,
Mm-hmm.
and addressing issues related to depression. So,
Mm-hmm.
how did you come to this work, and what exactly are you doing?
Yeah. So a little background is I was raised an only child. So didn't have any siblings myself. And the adjustment from no other children at home to having a house with a large number of children was quite an adjustment. So my mom was one of 12 and she came from humble beginnings. So education was her way out, of those humble beginnings. She
Mm-hmm.
started young, having a great work ethic, and that's what she instilled in me. So, needless to say, I was very focused on, the accolades, the good grades, gifted classes, and, just high achiever type mindset. Then, you fast forward, I meet my husband in college. We're both on this career path. And then we have children. And so, for me, being an only child, I remember those days where my mom couldn't go to field trips. She couldn't be a class mom and come to the
Mm-hmm.
parties because she was working. And so that was something that always remained in the back of my head that I just didn't want that experience. I wanted to have the opportunity to be with my children on those occasions. And so then we go into me staying home. Well, coming from a college and career path, all of my colleagues went to work just as my mom did, and other people that were on that same track. So staying home, I had no example of what that looked like. So I just thought, well, if I work hard enough, surely this shouldn't be anything different. I can just transfer that ethic that I have to being at home and it's going to be successful. Well, that led me on a spiral of depression. So I was on depressed for 13 years. So I wasn't in the bed, head under the covers. I was active, taking my kids to soccer, PTA. My husband was a pastor, so first lady. He also was the officer in the military. So all these different jobs I was doing, but it was all about people pleasing, about getting that accolade, that notoriety for whatever it was that I did. And it was very unfulfilling. And so during that 13 years, I was hospitalized 3 times for depression. And after my last hospitalization, I just said, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that I'm the common denominator in this cycle. And I can't keep blaming my kids and husband. Okay. So I had to face myself and realize, ask different questions and begin that inward journey of figuring out what was I doing that was having me have this outcome. So from that, I created my own strategy that I call Fresh Start. And it is an acronym on 5 key areas that help me overcome depression and maintain a life depression free. And so that really has been the basis and catalyst for me now, being a lifestyle designer is what I call it, because I feel like there's a lot of coaches out there.
There are a lot of coaches
so,
out there.
I'm all about helping the woman design the life that she wants and overcoming the limiting beliefs and transforming her mindset to get that to happen. So I do group coaching. I am an inspirational speaker, any platform where I could share my story, talk about the quiet topic that we just kind of sweep under the rug of depression. I'm all for it. And I'm also a podcast host.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And you broadcast every day, right?
I release a podcast every day.
Okay.
But yeah, it seems like it's pretty much every day. Now I've transitioned to where I have audio and video. And the video is recorded through Zoom, but I also do live stream YouTube.
Okay.
So I just, yeah. Like I said, hey, wherever I can speak, girl, I'm there.
I love that. And I love your path. It is not everyone who recognizes when things are not quite going right, that you got to start within. It's really easy for us to push the blame outside of ourselves. And it may belong there, but you have to also explore inside. And I think if you start there, then by the time you get to the outside, you really know that that's where it belongs.
Well, and
experience.
Well, I found that, the more I had this victim mentality, which I fell right into that. Okay. I was so busy wearing it like a badge, when I had to go to the hospital and woe is me, all this stuff. And it's disempowering.
Yeah.
You really don't have any power when you're going around being a victim. The only way you get power is to choose, decide, take action.
Yeah.
All these things are not what a victim would do, right? So once I learned that, I was like, this is really the missing link. This is the basis for me reframing this past, which is one of the elements of my strategy, because, many times we have these aha moments and it's like, you know what, I'm not that person anymore. So you go and lock that person in the closet, pretend they never even existed, and try to have this new life that does not include them. And so the problem with that is that there is not that wholeness, so I use the analogy of if you injured your arm and your arm was really just a thorn in your flesh, you wouldn't just say, I'm just going to cut this arm off and keep it moving.
Right.
I don't really need this arm, but that's what we do with our past. We don't want to face it, or we don't want to embrace that it still is a part with who we are today.
Right.
So
Oh,
for me,
absolutely.
so I had to learn, how was this going to serve me this past? So you can, somebody told me something so profound about um, drinking, something like having a drink, but spitting out the poison or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to think about, what is it that's not serving us about our past? And the thing that is, find a way to embrace it and then empower yourself to reframe your story in a way that is going to move you forward.
I love that. And you're right. I think about the amount of time I spent in my last job complaining about how unhappy I was in that job. And I would get these moments, and it's like, you should just quit. Or my husband would say, well, then leave. Right. And there was something that was with that victim mentality to hold on to it, because it was a story I got to tell. Well, right. I still tell the story now, but I tell it in a different way, and I tell it from a different perspective, most of which is about all the lessons that I learned while I was there, how being in a place that I did not enjoy, how it actually is serving me now. And it served me then in a way that I couldn't see, because I hadn't taken the time to go inside, right? And try to figure out what that was.
So true. And, I think for me, the biggest lesson I learned with that was, once I was able to go inside, I didn't seek that validation from other people, because I've learned through my experience, I'm like, hey, I come from a gifted background, making good grades and stuff. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, I'm not the only one with this idea that, oh, I want to be liked, or I want people to have, think that I add value. We all deal with that. Absolutely. So once I learned that, what, we all are striving for the same thing. And, we're having these superficial conversations and about some stuff that we're all trying to cover up. And I just feel like it was just a light bulb moment that now I just don't seek that. So I'm very transparent, and I feel like I say what everybody's thinking, but sometimes they just don't have the courage to say.
I hope you say it nicer than some people we know. I won't mention any names. But I was talking with a new client this morning, and basically saying the same thing. So, it is very much that we have to be in touch, have self-awareness, and then be willing to, which is another part, and you said this is part of your framework, is to reframe that experience, to embrace what was, because in reality, everything that has happened to you up until this point, every decision you've made, everything you've ever said, everything you've ever thought, all of those things added together make you the person you are in this moment.
Amen.
And so to pretend like some of that stuff doesn't apply, that it didn't happen, doesn't serve who you are in this moment. And you can't change it. So
can't change
any energy trying to pretend like it didn't happen is spending energy trying to change something that is unchangeable.
So true. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, because this is the thing. We all have those periods or things in our past that can't be changed. And one of the things that you will grow to find out as you evolve is that the things that you might have even interpreted might have been misinterpreted because you didn't have the right perspective, right? So even if I was a child who might have been traumatized, I was working with a client, and I told them that, they were traumatized at a young age, 7, 8, I said, why don't you go to a playground and you see how much power a 7 or 8-year old has, how naive they are. So what you're doing is once you have begun to be aware about your trauma, you're aware from your trauma at an adult thinking that you had that power when you were 7 or 8 that you don't have. You didn't even have the knowledge. So just going back and looking at that, you might have been holding yourself hostage to something that was totally impossible, wasn't even on your radar. So once people realize that, they can get freedom by recognizing, man, I understand this as an adult. I didn't have that kind of knowledge when I was 7 or 8. So I really was a victim, but I can choose to let that victim go.
Right. And that's a great distinction. And so thanks for sharing that. And I love that analogy. It makes absolutely perfect sense. So let's talk about, so you've shared with us sort of how you've gotten to this point. We know about your family, and what do you love about what you're doing? Which is really the point of what we're doing here is helping the audience understand that, like you said about happiness, you get to choose to be happy. You get to choose the work that you do, and you get to choose to love the work you do, or you can choose not to. But I know you do. And so tell us a little bit about why you love what you do.
I love it because I'm able to break down walls with people. You know, I remember that during my depression, I had a lot of walls up to the point to where I was numb. You know, I would have situations where, you know, even with my kids, it'd be like, you know, they'd have a situation that have them crying and they'd be distraught about something. And I'm just like, you know, my husband's working, I'm the only one with them. And so it's like, you know what, we just have to be strong. You know, it's almost like emotionless because I had a checklist of what had to be done. And I really didn't have time to cry. I didn't have time to, you know, do anything that was off the list, so to speak. And now to be able to have the space to be intentional and have compassion and see other people, right? Because I just created this wall that I don't have time to cry. I mean, I don't even remember crying really for a period of, you know, probably during that 13 years now, you know, and I wasn't one that cried in childbirth. It was painful. I never remember myself crying about it though. But just a lot of that emotion was bottled up and just walled off. You know, it was just, and so to be able to see the walls come down with other people, because, you know, we build these walls that we think to protect ourselves.
Right.
But in the end, it isolates us. It keeps us numb. And, you know, nothing penetrates through a wall. Right. So any kind of help that I could have gotten, it was not getting through that wall. Right. And so now being able to break down the walls, to cut the chase, to tell people how it really is, and see the relief that comes from them. You get to see it on their face when I say, yeah, hey, I got 15 kids and they act a fool. Okay. And then people are like, oh, they can relax. You know, I don't know what it is. Someone told me one time though that yeah, it was a podcast I listened to that if you are an influencer or a leader, you know, most people will put you on a pedestal, but you have the power to step down off that pedestal and walk with everybody else. You know, so that's one of the things that I like to do is, hey, I'm not up here, you know, nobody really gets the right to be up there. You know, this is one of the things that perpetuates this illusion that there is a fairy tale, that life is perfect, you know, your kids don't cut up. Okay. I mean, that is just some stuff that I'm not trying to perpetuate anymore because I fell into that trap for so long that I'm done with that. Okay.
And anyway, it's always that everybody else is, I bet you'll have this. You send your kids, I don't know, to your parents' house, or they go to a friend's house and they come back, and people say what an angel they were and how sweet they were. And you're like, are we talking about the same kid?
Right.
I don't recognize that kid, right?
So true. So true. I said, hey, my kids, they know how to lay it on at the appropriate time, right? We could be out. So, then that's when someone said, well, that's good. At least they keep their behavior that you don't want them seeing at home. So that was one positive way to look at it.
That is a positive. That is a positive way to look at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, yeah, they're not embarrassing me in the street, but you
right.
want to go, but I just want a break at home every now and then.
Right.
So, and it's like, I guess it depends on what you're looking for.
Hey, girl, that's why I get up early, because they sleep. Okay, so I can enjoy them. Don't they look cute when they sleep? Oh, girl, so innocent.
The world is very quiet before everyone else wakes up. So,
girl, yeah, but if you have those moments, go look at your kids when they're asleep. And then it's like, oh, they're so little angels. And then, hey, watch out when they get up, though.
As long as their mouth is closed and their feet are still.
Right. Okay.
That's too funny. So, Lachelle, share with us a little bit about, so you met your husband in college, and you've shared the story since then, but before you went to college, did you have a job at all before you got to that point? What was the very first job you had that wasn't babysitting?
Oh yeah, so I was a dietary aide in a senior citizens home.
Okay.
So yeah, so you know what? I've always had this thing with older people. I don't know what it is about. I spent a lot of time with my maternal and paternal grandparents through the summers. And so I just, they would just sit there and talk to me. And I don't know if maybe because I was the only child, anybody who was talking to me, I was listening, okay? Because I didn't have anything else to do. But, I just listened for the wisdom. But yeah, so I was a dietary aide at a nursing home. That was my first job. And then I did a lot with retail. I was a waitress at some point for Pizza Hut. And those are pretty much the jobs. It was basically retail, which got me into sales and liking that kind of business. So my degree is in marketing. So that's what I got my degree in. But then it's just like, been at home and just kind of, would help out with my husband when we had like little part-time jobs that we would do to supplement income, until I actually just said, hey, I'm just going to embrace who I am, and we're going to have this business at the same time. So that's really the history behind it.
I love that about you. It's like, this is the season I'm in my life. There are kids at home, and instead of being, and I know you had your evolution through all of this and your growth through all of this, but instead of being like, woe is me, I'm a stay-at-home mom, how to make that work for you, right? Not just for the family and doing things for them, but for you, feeding you, and then still being able to have their energy to be there for other people, to stand in the gap for other people as they are walking their journey. And so how did you come up with, I'm imagining it wasn't too difficult, but how did you come up with America's Supermom?
Well, I was interviewed by the local news here in Atlanta, and the segment that they had was called Supermom. For I think it was the birth of I was pregnant with our 14th baby at the time. And so they were covering the story about us going to be delivering. It's going to be 14 kids. And so that was the title of the segment. once I had got out of my last hospitalization, which was in 2014, I got with a coach, and that coach really worked with me in terms of the business. You know, it was at a point where I needed to separate the two because I was just so busy trying to figure out how I was going to fit it all together. And she was from the UK. And so she just said, "You're America's supermom. You know, who else do I know?" You know, so that really stuck to me. So I looked it up and I just started creating the hashtag. And the thing about it that I think is so profound is that, you know, it was me really being able to embrace having, you know, my children and being a part of my story and my brand. And I don't care how many interviews I go on, how many podcasts, people always ask me why I have that name. They don't, it doesn't even register that it's because I have a lot of children. I don't know what they're thinking. So it's like, you know, God really just blesses me because even though that is the reason why, he still gives me the space and the platform for people to recognize that there is more to me than being a mother of 15. So I just think it's phenomenal. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's such a good point there. And that's for all of us, right? Regardless of what we are, what we've done, we are so much more than just the labels that are put on us or that we take on ourselves, the identities that we take on ourselves. And at a minimum, we are all of those things, but I still think we're more than the sum of those parts as well.
So true. Yeah.
So what were some of the lessons that you learned when you were working retail and learning about sales? What were what's a lesson or two that you learned at that time of your life?
I've learned that, you know, not everybody has the same work ethic. This is true, you know. That is one thing. And retail really helped me to define what my values were because, you know, you work holidays, weekends, and for me, having a marketing degree, and that was really the basis. I love retail. I love the sales. I don't know, something about the adrenaline, you know, of being able to sell something and just have that kind of opportunity to interact with the client that way. But I learned really quickly that there was going to be a difference with what my values were being a mother and having a family than being very successful in a retail career. And I think this is important for a lot of people to kind of gauge where, you know, maybe something you've always known, you've always been good at, you can find a way to do that in a different manner. You can still use those skills and pivot in a different way that's going to serve you. Because I think when it comes to just the way we've been conditioned, we don't really think about options. We just think about what we know, and that's the only thing. If it doesn't work that way, it's not going to work. And so we don't even entertain or unlearn that we can create something new. And so I think that's really the important thing, is to recognize, you know, even now staying home, you know, there's a lot of people working remotely. Well, what's stopping you from being remote and doing your own business? Right. So it's like, if you could do it for a company, why can't you do it for yourself with something that you like to do? I mean, I'm just trying to figure that out. But we just haven't been in the mindset to think that we can create something. So once you kind of know what your values are, then you can kind of figure out, how am I going to fit this in this kind of way? You know, that's just like for me, we were talking before we recorded, and it's like interview after interview after interview from like now until like 7:30. And it's because during the day, I'm in there with my 8 children because they're e-learning. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, hey, they need to get their education. I need to be watching them, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to
Right.
be doing. So this work stuff, hey, if I have to do a major boom, boom, boom with interviews, then that's what has to happen so that I can monitor them and see that they're doing what they're doing.
You know, and that's such a good point. It's one of those things that as people are, you know, working through doing work maybe that they're not absolutely in love with, or working at it, maybe they like the work, but maybe not the company or the bosses or whatever, that there is nothing that says that you can't be working towards your own thing, or working, you know, working on education, learning something that you need that allows you to move somewhere else. You know, before I set out full time on my own, you know, I did this, I guess, as a side hustle is what we would call it, right? I was doing it on the side of the job because I knew I was going to be making a change. There was going to be a transition, and that it's okay to be planning for a transition. It's okay to be where you are, to be grateful for what you have, and still want something else, and say, you know, at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, a year from now, 2 weeks from now, whatever it is, to make a plan and work towards it. It's
So
okay.
true.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that means that while you are homeschooling your kids and you're working from home, and I get it, you're tired at the end of that. But if you've got something else that you want to do, let that be what spurs your energy, right? The creative energy to come out of you so that you can actually have the energy to do that. And my drive for something other than what I was doing is what spurred me starting to get up early in the morning. And people was like, why do you get up so early? Because if I save what I wanted to do to the end of the day, after all that stuff drained me, nothing else would get done. Right. And so you have to be self-aware enough. You have to know who you are when you work well, right? When's your most creative time, when you think best, and do the thing that you want to do during that time, and then put your boss on bad time, right? You know, not bad time, but
I know what you mean.
Right?
It's when like, you're kind of like on autopilot.
Yes. If you, exactly. If you're going to be on autopilot, let it be for that, right? Particularly if you're not a pilot, right? If you're not physically responsible for people's lives or something like that. And maybe if you're driving a car or something, maybe you should stay alert and energetic for that. But you know, we have choices in that. And if you are able to readjust when things get done, take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. And if you can't, then, you know, that's a whole different thing. Then you should call Lachelle, or you should call me, and we can help you figure that out. But if you can be flexible with that, then do what you want to do when you are at your best, whether that's first thing in the morning or, you know, right before midnight.
So true, because, you know, really, it doesn't take as much time as people think.
Right.
You know, if you just, I mean, because we just don't do a lot of focus work. You know, there's this book by Cal Newport, Deep Work. And the premise is that you're working deeply for about an hour, right? Doing something, a focused time in working. And so so you have to think about, if you're really only doing a good hour, you know, how can you spend that hour? A lot of us are doing things that burn us out. You know, like if you're going around chasing clients because you don't have the right messaging, or you have bills that you've accumulated because you are trying to look successful, you know, before you've gotten to that level. You know, one of the things that I'm all about is free stuff, because people say, man, I see you doing this, I see you doing that. If I get a platform and it's free for me to get exposure, I'm going to be there. I'm going to do it, because it's not a risk for me to go out there and explore if that really works in my business or not. Right. I'm not going out and investing in 7 or 8 different things. And yeah, they might be $20 here and $30 there. But if you're doing that all the time, that stuff adds up.
Yeah.
And then, you're sitting here just like, telling people anything so you can pay your bills. And I'm just not one for doing that.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And it helps you to operate, whether you're self-employed or working for someone else, it helps you to approach the work from a pure place, right? If you are in a place where you're constantly chasing dollars because of a lifestyle that you've set up, it creates a tension in that that keeps you from actually enjoying what you already have. So, I totally get that. So, Lachelle, as we wrap this up, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to share about work and just the approach to finding work that you love?
Yes. One of the things, this is kind of off topic, but I want to tell people about mental wellness, is that everyone should smile. And so SMILE is an acronym with 5 pillars that helps us to be mindful of the areas that we need to be looking at so that we don't fall into depression. So the S stands for sleep. We want to make sure that we're sleeping enough throughout each night. M is for your mood, gauging how that is on a regular basis. I is for your inner voice. What are you telling yourself? Are you having a lot of days where you're beating yourself up or comparing yourself to other people? L is laughter. So remembering to have fun in whatever you do. And E is for energy. So thinking about your energy. Like you said earlier, when do you do your best work? When do you feel at your best? And lining things up with that. So if you look at these 5 areas, these can help people when it comes to their mental state of being in a good place. The next thing I would say about loving your work is to recognize that you are your brand. Okay. So I don't care if you're working for Nestle, Pfizer, or some of these big Fortune 500 companies, you are your brand. So you want to always remember your values and bring them to the table of whatever it is that you're doing. So if you decide, God forbid, we're in situations where people work with companies that they thought they would be retiring from. And now because of this global pandemic, they are reinventing themselves. But if you are your brand, there is no reinventing. It's just you being you with a different thing that you're doing, right? So really embrace who you are and have that awareness. Another thing is be around positive people. I don't watch the news, so I'm around people that are positive. I'm in a bubble. I had this experience, when we had this last hurricane, someone sent me a message through Messenger and said, so how are things going with Sally? And I said, Sally, because I connect people, all the time. And I'm thinking, oh, shoot, looking at my
calendar. I forgot to follow up with Sally.
Yes. Huh? Did I forget? Do I have a podcast interview? I'm racking my brain. I call them back. Message them back. And I said, so who's Sally? They said the hurricane. I said, I just laughed. I said, now, I don't watch the news. I said, yeah, it is raining here. But, my point is when you're around positivity, you can have those experiences. I know people probably are like, just like you said, how do you smile? How are you in a good mood? Because you have to really be strategic about the people that are in your life, the things that you invest your time in. And I look at my calendar and some of the things and collaborations that I'm doing. And if I was around negative people, there was no way that I would be able to get it at all. So, your support group and tribe really matters. And then the last thing is have fun. Find ways that you can have fun. I don't care if it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, calling a friend, coloring with your kids, grandkids, you know, doing something to create a memory. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what is going on with this global pandemic, these kids are going to be thinking about memories that were created, you know. And even now, you think about, man, I remember when this pandemic first started, we used to always sit together around at the table. Why? Because nobody was going anywhere, you know, when we were eating or we played board games or whatever. That's what they're thinking about. You know, yeah, we can talk about we were stuck inside and mask and everything else, but it's these memories that we really can create during this time. I could go on forever, but I'm gonna
That's
stop there.
really good. And just on that last point, there's a mindset shift that goes along with that as well, right? And as you were saying that, it was like in the early days of the pandemic, there was people seemed to be okay with being at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then over time, it's like, okay, now it's too much, but it's still a mindset. And we
Right.
still get to make choices about how we view it. I was talking with people yesterday, and they were talking about how, you know, being locked down. One, I've never used that term. I don't
Right.
use lockdown, shut in, shut down, you know, locked up, or any of those euphemisms. I have never used it. I will not. And I have gotten outside every single day.
Right.
And so, and that's a choice. Now, some of it is sort of necessity. I have a dog, he needs to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to go out lets me know that I'm still free, right? And
Amen.
so I can go out and do what I want. I'm cautious. If I go inside somewhere, I wear a mask. But other
Mm-hmm.
than that, I can come and go as I please. And so
Right.
to take on a mindset of anything else creates some of the angst that I think
So true.
you don't know anything about because you're not watching the news, but some of the angst,
Well,
some of
you
the
know, it
angst is
does
going on
come
in the world.
through on your
And
feed.
I don't either, but I do, you know, I am selective about some things that I pull from YouTube,
Oh yeah. Well,
you
and
know,
my husband,
news snippets and stuff just to know what's going on. Fortunately, there's no hurricanes where I live, so I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about Sally.
and well, and my husband, he watches the news. So it's like
You
we're
get a
night
play
and
by
day.
play from him later,
He is
right?
always trying to tell me, and I'm like, I don't even
I'm
want to
not
hear
trying to hear it. I'm not trying to hear
it.
that.
Okay. No, but it's filtered by that time because
Yeah.
he's probably told what 20 people. So then it's like he doesn't have that same energy, you know. And
Right.
this is the thing, even when I hear stuff, it's like it's watered down, believe
Yeah.
it or not,
Yeah.
because they've told like 20 people already, and they get to me, and it's like I can really just be conscious of how I want to react to it, you know.
And
It's not,
I
it doesn't
think
have
that's
that
such a good
emotional
thing.
charge. Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm a big believer in the energy
Mhm.
and what we watch, what we listen to, who we spend our time with has a huge impact on our energy. You know, Jim Rome's famous saying, you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Absolutely true. And so if you want better, if you want more, if you want to enjoy your life, you want to enjoy your work, spend your time around people who do that. And
Right.
whether those people are self employed or employed, doesn't matter. Just find people who live not materially, but
Mhm.
mentally and emotionally. Find the people who live life the way you want to live with the values that you have and the
Mhm.
priorities that you have. And you'll see how it's possible. So,
Mhm.
Lachelle, thank you so much for coming by. Love your work and chatting with
Mhm.
us about your life, your experience, how exciting it is to be America's super mom. I was just
Thank
a
you.
mom.
Hey,
There was no super in front of that, but
every mom
it's
is a super
okay.
mom. Okay, you already know. It's like, hey, we hide a lot of stuff behind the term mom.
I
Okay.
had my moments. I did have my
Yeah.
moments.
Mhm.
I accept that. I have my moments.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
but thank you so much for coming by and sharing your lessons and a little bit about your life. And I look forward to talking with you again and getting together and doing something spectacular to help with women in empowerment. And so if there's something I can do to be of service to you, you let me know.
I sure will. And I have really enjoyed this time. And I just want to thank you so much for having me. And I definitely will keep you in my mind about that, because I will be calling people as I get things going, because those wheels get to turning. So
you are. People say I'm busy. You're busy. I've been watching you. I got my eyes on you. So
okay. Yeah, because I'll just be pulling you right along with me, girl.
It's all good.
And it's like, oh, I might not be able to make it. I do have some kids, but Whitney, she can speak. She does good. You'd be like, now what if I done got myself into?
I have a project that I already have you on the list for. So it's coming.
Okay.
So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining Lachelle and I today. And if you want to get to know more about Lachelle, you can find her here on Facebook. You can find her. She is active on YouTube. You can find her in the links, in the posts on where you can go and watch the spectacular things that she's doing. So thank you for joining us for Love Your Work. And until next time, take care.
Bye, everybody.